So first of all, we've got this case called the Pivot case. Now, this case is primarily geared towards pilots or private pilots. I have my private pilot's license, but I use the Pivot case in a lot of other aspects as well besides flying. One of the reasons that I'm switching to this device is because my iPad mini is getting a little old and a little slow, and I wanted something a little bit faster. So the Pivot case is a case that covers the entire iPad. You can see that it's got a cover on the front here that covers the display and protects it. On the back, we have a kickstand. We also have the case attached. And so there's a quick release right here, and I'll show you basically how that works. If I open up the case is integrated as a stand as well. And so we've got a stand that's adjustable. You can basically slot it into these different adjustments here so that it has a different angle. And that's really great. It's pretty stable, has a little bit of a bounce to it, but it's meant to basically just be in display mode here. And if I had a keyboard, I could use that keyboard and a mouse, and it would work out really well. Now, when this is closed, it covers up the iPad and covers everything and keeps it really safe. Just takes a little bit of getting it lined up just right, and boom, you're there. You can see here that there's also a place for the pencil to snap in for better protection. Obviously, it's in its charging position right now, and there's a position on the back of the case for better safety. So this pops right off. Now, if I don't need this, I could set this aside, and then I basically have a case on the iPad. You can see that there's kind of grips right here for holding the iPad. Feels really good to hold it in those grips, feels very secure. And there's also a kickstand on this case as well. And so now I can kickstand the iPad and view it at pretty much any angle, even go pretty low. And this is a good angle for writing. So I like being able to put it in kickstand mode, especially if I'm using this as maybe a second monitor for my MacBook, and I'm using this as an external monitor. I could just kickstand the iPad, have my MacBook, and have those dual displays, which is really great. I haven't even gotten to how I use this in aviation and with working out and the different things that this case really is amazing for. But first, let's check out that pen location here for pen storage. So if I take my Apple Pencil and snap it right into place here, now the pencil is safe and secure, and it's not going anywhere. And so it can't just pop out of this little tray up on top if I accidentally bumped it. It's now safely stowed in the case. Then I could pop this out, put the Apple Pencil right back in place. What is probably the best feature of this case is this quick release on the back. Now, the front portion of the case connects the same way. And so you slide this in like so, and then you can cover up the iPad. But there's also adapters in which I can snap this into mounts. And so on my treadmill, I have a mount. In front of my drum set where I practice drums, I have a mount, and I could just slap my iPad right into place, and then I have it readily available, and I could use it as my display for playing music. And usually when I'm running on the treadmill, I'm using Zwift. If I'm at the drums, I can have my sheet music or the lesson or something that I'm utilizing for practicing drums up. When I'm flying in a small airplane, I have a mount that attaches this in the airplane so that I can mount this iPad and use it for navigation. This case is just so many things. What it also is, though, is a little bit bulky. So if we look at the thickness of the case, it does add a bit of bulk to our iPad. These cases have gotten so much thinner over the years. This is actually thinner, I think, than the case that's on my iPad mini, which is the same case, it's just on the iPad mini. You can see here that the buttons are still accessible, everything's still accessible on the case, but it is a little bit of a case. And getting the iPad off of this case also is a little bit of a process. I always end up taking a screenshot because the buttons get pressed down. If you make a choice to go with this case, you're probably going to want to leave your iPad in this case because getting it out of the case is a little bit of a process, and you definitely don't want to hurry through that process because you don't want to maybe tweak your iPad. There is one really cool hidden feature of this case, and it's on the inside. It's this little circle. Any ideas what would go here? Well, I don't have one in there yet because I had to order another one because I'm using my other ones, but an Apple AirTag can go in here. And what's super cool about that is that should you misplace your iPad, you set it somewhere you can't really remember, maybe you left it in the car or whatever, the iPad's battery goes dead. and then your location changes. The AirTag being in here is going to help you find your iPad. And yes, I know that it will signal the last location that the iPad was or whatever, but if the iPad gets turned off, the battery goes dead, or whatever the case may be, you're not going to be able to find your iPad. But with an Apple AirTag that's hidden inside the case, that is a killer feature and definitely a really neat benefit to the Pivot case. Here is the documentation that comes with it. Nothing too crazy, just really simple documentation. It's one of the most adaptable, useful cases that I've been able to find. It does a lot more than these other cases, but it is a lot more than these other cases. It's a lot more in price. It's a lot more in the size of the case, the thickness, and all that good stuff.